The first section we're going to cover is on I.1, or solving integer problems using a number line specifically. In order to solve these problems, though, we kind of have to think about positive and negative numbers and how they interact with each other. Now, the way that I like to remember how this works is I like to think of positive numbers as really weak and scrawny and not very strong, like Mr. Evans. But then I think of negative numbers as big and tough and powerful, a lot like Mr. Schmidt. So when we think of positive numbers, weak and scrawny, negative numbers, big and strong. And what happens when we do that is we end up dealing with situations where positive and negative numbers end up interacting with each other. So if a positive and a negative number would fight, just like if Mr. Evans and Mr. Schmidt fought, obviously Mr. Schmidt is going to win that fight. And it doesn't really matter if Mr. Schmidt's on the left or the right side of the fight, he's still going to win. But if we have two weak and scrawny numbers fighting each other, they're going to stay weak and scrawny. Nothing's going to change. But if we have two Mr. Schmidts fight each other, they're so big and strong that they actually beat each other up and they turn into a weak and scrawny positive number. So I want you to really remember those pieces. If positive and negative fight, a negative wins. A negative and positive fight, negative wins again. Positive, positive, nothing changes. But if two negatives fight, then they beat each other up and turn into a positive. And what happens is we start dealing with problems like this, -3 plus 5. And I like to solve these problems by breaking them into 3 steps, which I'm going to write down here. Step 1 is always we want to start with whatever the left number is. In this problem, the left number is -3. So we're going to start with a -3. We circle it here on the number line. That's step 1. Step 2 is we need to decide the direction. And what my students like to say here is we like to make, step 2 is the fight. We need to figure out who's fighting. Well, in this one, there's only one thing in the ring. There's only a positive. Therefore, nothing changes. And we know that positive numbers go to the right. So in this problem, we're going to move right. Which brings us to the final step, which is step 3. And that is the distance that we cover. Well, the distance that we cover is always determined by the second number of the problem. So for -3 plus 5, we start at -3 and we move to the right 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Which means the answer to -3 plus 5 is +2. Always 3 steps. Even though the steps change a little bit, it's always that same style. So let's get a little bit tougher here. So if we start with -5 or +5 minus 3, once again, we want to break it up into 3 steps. Step 1 is we want to start at +5. Step 2, we identify what's in the middle, still one thing. Therefore, we move left this time because negative numbers are left. And we want to move 3 to the left. So 1, 2, 3. Therefore, 5 minus 3 is equal to a +2. Now, I'm hoping you look at the problem and be like, I already knew that. That's not that tough. But I think it's important sometimes to understand why that was the answer in the first place. So as we move to the problem here, 4 plus a -8. Obviously, this is a little bit new and a little bit more difficult. So, once again, same 3 steps. We want to start with a 4, but this time, a positive and a negative are in between the numbers. They're both in the ring. And if we remember from that slide, if a positive and a negative fight, the negative ends up winning. Therefore, 4 plus -8 is the same thing as 4 minus 8. Therefore, now we go to the left, 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Therefore, 4 plus a -8 is -4. Or 4 minus 8 is still -4. These have the same answer because they are the same problem. Okay, we got a little bit tougher. We can get a little bit tougher still. So from here, we have -5 plus a -2. Once again, we're going to start at our -5. In between the numbers, we have a positive and a negative. If Mr. Schmidt and Mr. Evans fight, obviously Mr. Schmidt is going to win. So I go left 2. And we land at -7. So -5 plus -2 is equal to a -7. The problem on the right, very similar. 7 plus -6. We start at 7. In between the numbers is a positive and a negative, which means the negative wins. And we're going to go to the left 6. And we end at +1. If you notice, every problem I write a little bit less down. It's not necessarily important to write every single step for every single problem, but it is important to understand what each step is and the best way to solve the problem for you. Now we have one more slide here, and this is where it gets a little tricky. So it's important to break down each step, really work on them one at a time. So for the problem on the left, first part is we are going to start at +4. But this time, in between the numbers, we have a negative and a negative. If two negatives fight, they beat each other up so badly. One of my students likes to say body slam each other so badly that they turn into a weak and scrawny positive. So 4 minus -3 is the same thing as 4 plus 3. So that means we go to the right 3 and land at +7. So the problem on the right, similar but not the same. Start at -3. The two numbers in between are both negative here. So we end up doing -3 plus 2. So we go to the right 2, 1, 2, and we end at -1. So -3 minus -2 is equal to -1. So if you didn't score a 4 out of 4 or a 3 out of 4 on this section, you are required to do a retake.